After so much interest from last week's piece about the mental side of riding, we decided to expand the discussion for this week's Weekly Wonder. Two major topics riders always seem to want to know are, what are the top professional riders' focus routines before going into competition? And how do you bounce back from a bad round that shakes your confidence? Here to discuss these questions is world-renowned equestrian mental coach and author, Annette Padarakis. Annette has worked with athletes all over the world from amateur to Olympic level. She specializes in helping equestrians create a mindset that builds confident, consistent, and powerful performances in sport and in life. She is here with us today to discuss some basic tips that anyone can use to improve their sport performance. Let's get started with a little bit of general insight. Why do people primarily come to you?
Yeah, good question. At this stage in my career, I have actually a lot of people who are performing already really well. So they ride at top level and they just want to do better. They know somewhere deep down that there is more in there and they want consistency. That's usually the word they use. When it comes to riding at home and actually beyond that, the stuff they do elsewhere, they are not always as consistent. Right? So that really comes down to small details, but how you focus you are, on time you are, connected to yourself, that really plays a big role. Now, that might seem like a little far-fetched sometimes, but when you look at the top level, that is what's required. And being able to focus the whole way around in the ring, that means you need to practice that way more at home. They need to simplify instead of overcomplicate.
Yeah.
So when things go awry, we tend to want to do more, or when it's a really important championship, we want to do more, and actually staying true to what works for you to be able to really feel your horse, stay connected with that and yourself, and just really keep enjoying it, keeping it light, you know?
Yeah.
It sounds so silly, but actually it is really what makes riders perform at their best.
What is your number one tip to tell people when they do have a bad round or something doesn't go well? What would you tell them as your best advice to say, hey, this is a way to kind of get you out of that rut maybe that you're in, or had a bad round and you mentally want to get into a better place?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I think if you as a baseline know how your mind works and where it goes off to and what your triggers are, you are more likely to be able to detect that when things go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So awareness, noticing, that's really where it starts. So that is why I very much believe that we all should invest in some sort of personal development to really understand yourself, know what works for you. Also know, what's going on in your own mind, in your own body. At the end of the day, it's also then to pick yourself back up and keep going. I can give you all the tools you like, but you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And being able to then to get back to trust, get back to that place within you that says you do know what you're doing. Keep trusting that, because you start doubting yourself, and that's very common, and that is normal at any level, trust me. However, it's those who then dare to step back into that trust again, connect with that again, and keep going and focus on the things that really matter. They're the ones that ultimately succeed.
Yeah, I think self-belief is a big thing.
And it's something you can cultivate, self-belief. It's not something that is, even, or for some, that's something they really have to work on. But again, that's why you want to invest in that.
Is your approach always the same? Do you change your approach of how you treat each sort of mental case as far as, this rider needs this? Is it a similar thing, or do you actually try to adapt your system?
If I want to approach everyone the same, it doesn't work, right? So for some, it's just saying half a word and they got it and they're off with it,
Yeah.
And for others, it's just repetition and repetition. And that is my job, to not get into judgment or, I keep looking at the best version of them. That's who I coach, always.
You wrote a book called Winning Habits.
Yes.
Can you leave our audience with your 3 top tips for winning habits from top athletes?
There's obviously a lot.
Not just three, but
not
what are
just
your
three.
three main ones?
If I have to mention a few, I would say deliberate training is really key. And when I talk to the top riders, what always strikes me is their focus on being really deliberate with what they do, constantly looking at what does the horse need, what's required here, and they adjust. Two is a growth mindset. You know, these riders have an incredible willingness to keep improving themselves, and they always say, like, you need to be open to really approach it from all angles, not just the riding and focusing on your horse. You're the other 50% of the team, right? You need to invest in yourself and train yourself on all levels, mental, Rodrigo said today, spiritual, physical, you know, it really can make the difference. And now I think we're getting in the sport to a point where details really make the difference. And third, focus, you know, is something we always come back to. It's a word and a concept that we know is extremely important to do well, and yet what does it really mean to focus, right? Because we always focus on something.
Yeah, it's focusing on the right thing.
That's it. And I think at the top level, it's also about really focusing, like the depth of focus and training yourself and observing, first of all, where your focus is. So being focused, saying that is not enough. You need to be also here more deliberate and detailed about it, and make a plan for yourself to train yourself. If you have a lot of different things going on, like business, personal life, and writing, of course, that can really dilute your focus. And so training that, being observant of it, and then managing that and constantly, you know, being on it and knowing how to do that, that can really make a huge difference. Sometimes riders realize that they haven't really been connecting. They have been wanting the horse to do something, and they have been maybe sometimes forcing it a bit, and coming back to actually, you know, this is something you started because you love the horse. Get back to that, connect at that level, and start seeing the horse and meet the horse where they are, not where you want them to be.
Well, that was really valuable insight. And remember, peak performance and success is in the eye of the beholder. Set realistic goals and take it one step at a time. Riding horses is a lifelong sport, and you never stop learning. So watch your idols, keep working at it, and persevere through the thick and thin of it.